finding out he was rape conceived, Jim's mission has been to provide insight and education regarding the value of each and every human life, regardless of the nature of conception, and to assist rape survivor mothers and their children. Jim resides in Prospect Heights with his wife Wendy, also an adoptee and abortion attempt survivor, and their 3 sons, Matthew, Christopher, and David. Jim, would you please?
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. So what are the topics people think about every day? There are dozens, of course. Many of us here think a lot about abortion. Is there anyone here who spends any time thinking about their conception? I think contemplating one's own conception usually elicits a response of, whoa, too much information. I think about my conception every day. At one time, those thoughts were painful and suffocating. I'd like to share with you a story to explain why. Being adopted, I was told I was born to an unwed mother, and even though she surrendered me, I hoped that I was formed from an act of love. I created 2 special people in my imagination who, despite their love, found themselves in a difficult situation and faced with a tough decision. I accepted the possibility in the long run that even though they were together, the love may have only lasted briefly. I at least hoped that my conception occurred from a positive moment between my biological parents. Although I was curious, as life went along, I kept most of my questions inside. Beginning in 1995 and over the course of the next 10 years, curiosity about my roots slowly conquered my caution. By the fall of 2005, the curiosity became an urgency, so I mailed a background information request to Catholic Charities. I felt like a kid eagerly awaiting the mail every day. The much anticipated revelation of my story arrived quietly enough in an innocent-looking, letter-sized envelope from Catholic Charities in November of 2005, but it may as well have been a live hand grenade with a pulled pin. On that early November day when I read the letter, my life came to an abrupt halt. The first page was okay, a very nice description of my mother. As I continued to the next page, the grenade went off, and 6 words jumped out and exploded my world. She said she was sexually assaulted. My mother was raped. She said the attack occurred as she walked home from work, and that is how I was conceived. The explosion obliterated my best-case imaginary scenario about my birth parents. The explosion also caused considerable destruction to my self-esteem, sending me into quite an emotional tailspin. For 2 years, only a therapist and my wife Wendy knew the story. Slowly, by the end of 2007, I was getting through the stigmatized feelings and began testing my ability to share and the ability of others to hear the story. There was a tremendous amount of stored pro-life energy in a rape conception story. I began to realize the gift I have been given, not just the gift of life, but the gift of having this unique story and the perspective it gives me about the sanctity of all life. My story and the stories of others I have met have the power to change the minds, soften the hearts, and expand the conscious horizon of those limited to abstract concepts about rape conception. We are not the rapist babies, we are children of God. The pro-abortion side declares all unwanted lives are expendable and abortion is justified, even recommended. Rape and incest conceptions create lives that they define as unwanted. On the list of unwanted lives, we are exhibit number 1. In reality, we are the proof that there are no unwanted lives. Adoption made me pro-life since the first time I learned about abortion. I was a freshman in high school when Roe v. Wade was decided. Abortion as a social issue was gaining more and more prominence in the early 70s, so it was probably during that time when I made my connection to being an abortion survivor. It was not long after abortion was legalized nationally when I began to hear the comments justifying the killing. People would say, these unwed mothers shouldn't be bringing these children into the world, which were painful comments to hear, certainly. But at least at that point I had a chance to tell them about my single mother and the fact that I'm much better off alive than in a garbage can. It was then that I realized that my birth was at least partially due to timing. Remember, if you accept the rape exception and support lawmakers who write the exception into law, you are saying that you are pro-life, except in the case of Jim Sable, or Mary Rathke, or Pastor Rob Murphy, or dozens of similarly conceived people that I've met, and the tens of thousands who are alive today and will be conceived in the future. That hurts. Consequently, the other side is left to define the issue, and some on our side are deceived into believing we are the rapist baby. We have no value, or that our lives are just not worth fighting for. Most, but not all, of that rape-conceived stigma comes from the other side. Supposedly, dehumanizing me shows compassion to the victimized woman, but they have it all wrong. It is not compassionate to add the death of a child onto the extreme trauma of sexual assault. I am rape-conceived. It took considerable time to be able to just blurt that out without hesitation. It is so tempting to just sit back down, as being front and center and speaking out is not something that really comes naturally to me, but I cannot sit down. Not with a pro-life fire burning inside that was ignited with the discovery and acceptance of my story. During those 2 years of recovery, I began to get small flashes of hope. I spent most of the following year hesitantly looking for a connection as my newfound energy fed a desire to give back to this system that saved and protected me. But I still had that alone on a desert island feeling regarding my conception story. After a special Respect Life Mass in November of 2008, I wandered downstairs to the small reception and walked to the display table for the Women's Center. This was the second time during my odyssey that words leaped off a printed page and exploded. There, as a promotion for their 2009 Life Banquet, was a small page with a printed picture of a woman's face and the leaping words, product of rape. It was Rebecca Kiesling's picture, and she was scheduled to give the keynote speech for the banquet. There's no doubt that that first explosion knocked me out cold, but the second one revived me and began to break apart my emotional shackles. I was not alone. This breakthrough coincided with a successful search for my birth mother. My birth mom was 36 years old when I was born, probably a little older than the typical rape conception. My adopted life was excellent, with all of the usual highs and lows of family life. My mom and dad were tremendous examples of God's grace and love. I had wonderful, loving parents. They gave me a life. But I still had some haunting curiosity about my history. Earlier in 2008, a dear friend with a talent for genealogical searching helped me locate my birth mother using the small amount of information that I had. Miraculously, pieces of the search puzzle fell together quite easily, and we identified my birth mother sometime during the fall. We found her only to discover that she had died a year earlier. Yeah, I guess I waited a little bit too long. Her name was Eleanor. We found Eleanor's sister, and with my aunt's help, I was able to learn quite a lot about Eleanor. She was living at home with her parents. She was reserved and quiet, devout with a steady moral compass. Her story was that while walking home from work one night, she was attacked and raped by an unknown man. She said nothing about the rape, and there was no police report. She went into a frozen emotional shutdown. She endured the pregnancy unsupported and in a secretive silence that was only broken when it became obvious that what was growing inside her was not the tumor that she told everyone that I was. Her tumor story was just not making sense anymore. The day Eleanor was scheduled to be admitted to St. Vincent's Mother and Baby Shelter, she went into labor and was rushed to the hospital where I was born about 5 weeks premature. After I was born and surrendered for adoption, I was never discussed again. Eleanor married about a year later and had no more children. As the years went by, the rape story was never retracted. I reunited with my aunt after our connection was verified. She told me she always wondered what happened to that little baby boy. Learning about Eleanor through the family stories that my aunt and cousins tell has been very comforting, although I do wish I could have given Eleanor at least one big hug. It took a while to prepare myself, and actually 2 years went by before I finally felt ready to take the next step, the last step, to finally visit my mother's grave. I'm not sure why I postponed going, other than just wanting to be emotionally ready. Once there, I knew I was with her spirit. I sat on the ground next to her grave for some time and prayed before cleaning her headstone. I removed the little gold baby feet pin I was wearing and cemented it into the rosary, cut into the granite, as a way to honor and remember our brief time together so many years ago. I wanted her to know that her son was there, that he loved her. I was so thankful for her courage. I hope Eleanor found some healing in giving me life. Please remember, ending the rape exception is key to ending abortion. As soon as I am not protected, no one is protected. The pro-abortion side takes the rape exception and runs with it, and they are logically able to make the argument that we pro-lifers really don't believe the preborn are human persons because we are not willing to protect all. It would require another full session to discuss the implementation and enforcement problems encompassed in the rape exception, and there are many. The rape exception creates a special class of pregnancy and leads to more special exceptions, which would be sought in court, leaving the door open to abortion forever. So we, the rape conceived, are the 1%. We know we are the 1% because when a law with exceptions is proposed and supported, it is said that the law will save 99% of babies that are targeted without the law. A clean law won't pass, and pushing for a principled law would be wasted effort, which leads me to ask a crucial question. What percentage would we have to be in order for it to be worth the trouble of fighting to keep the rape exception out of the law? 10%, 25%, 50%, apparently 1%, not quite enough in a lot of people's minds. Has this really been reduced to a numbers game? Are we just playing the odds, trying to determine what law might pass, instead of fighting for what we believe in? This is supposed to be about life, not numbers. There are some resources available for you. Please visit Rebecca Kiesling's website or Judah Meyer's site, which contain many more stories. There's also SaveTheOne.com, which helps increase awareness of this issue. It is meant to be a resource to politicians looking for help on how to speak with clarity on this issue. There are also 2 different DVDs. They're at the Northwest Families for Life table. Material on the DVDs are both rape conception DVDs with multiple stories. The material on DVDs is also available on YouTube. Thank you for caring enough for taking this issue seriously. Thank you all for fighting for life. For me, you represent the pro-life community of my preborn days of the late 1950s. I wish to honor you, and through you, honor them. Thank you very much.